Good evening, everyone. How are you today? My name is Michael Griffin. I'm sitting here with Chris Perez. We are residents of Ward F.
Hey, everybody.
Just to let you know, we are here to discuss development within our community. So, development within our community is taking place. It's taking place rapidly. So, with that being said, it is important for you to reach out to your Division of City Planning, reach out to your zoning, so that you can be on their mailing list, get information, so you can know what's going on. They have bi-weekly meetings, so you will get a agenda every other week. You can look, you can see what's taking place on your block or within your neighborhood. So all of these divisions fall under housing, economic development, and commerce. There are other divisions that fall under that. You can see it here on the slide. We're not going to get into that now because our focus is to bring two divisions to you at a time. So the first two and most important is development and zoning. So with development, for example, we usually have community meetings. With these community meetings, we meet with the developer and we bring in, of course, people from the community. And it's important to have these meetings because there are three different types of zonings, or there are several different types of zonings, right? You have your R zonings, which is like R1 through 5, which are residential. Then you have your commercial districts, which speaks for itself. It's all about, building commercial. And then you have your redevelopment plan areas, which are areas in need of redevelopment. We have a lot of that in Ward F, Jackson Hill, we have Canal Crossing, we have Mars Canal, and several others. The reason why we are bringing this information to you is because we do understand that we have a lot of residents who may not live in these redevelopment planned areas. They may, for the most part, you may live in R zone areas, which are the residential areas. And it's important to know what area you live in, especially if you're in an R1, because what's happening is developers are looking to come in and change zoning, right? So, when it comes to zoning, you have a process called variance application. So what these developers do is they'll bring in an architect, they'll find land, which is maybe an infill. For example, there was a project proposal for Arlington Avenue where they wanted to tear down a perfectly good home and get variance for zoning. So, in order to ensure that that doesn't happen, we're coming to you to give you information so you can understand how to have a voice. So, with that being said, let me just give you a couple of examples of how we've been successful and how we've not been successful, right? So some years ago, we actually combined the Monticello Avenue redevelopment plan and the Jackson Hill redevelopment plan. And what that did was that helped us streamline the entire commercial strip, right? It's 2.5 miles, and we did it because we want uniformity, right? So if we're saying that maybe it's 4 different zones within the district, we want this zone to remain what it is, 3 stories. We may want this zone to be 5 stories. We may want a zone to be 10 stories, or a particular area to be 10 stories. Like, for example, at the hub, there's a large plot of land where it wouldn't make sense to do 3 or 4 stories, but maybe anywhere from 8 to 12.
And then where transportation is, like the light rail stations and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Chris has a great point there, right? If we want density, then it makes sense to do that. However, when you talk about different blocks, let's say Stegman, for example, right? Stegman, Wegman, Myrtle, Grand, just Astor Place, just side streets. You do have developers who had attempted but failed to create larger buildings, versus homes, right? They would come in, if it's an infill project, maybe 2 homes were next to each other and now it's a lot. They figure because of the lot size, they can go ahead and do a 20 to 30 unit apartment building versus what the zoning is, which would be maybe 2, 3, or 4 different 2-family homes, right? And that makes a big difference, right? Because you're spreading the land out, you're being conducive to the block. You want everything pretty much at the same height, and you're bringing in less people on these side blocks. And we can go into a whole lot of things when it comes to development and whether it makes sense or not, because now you get into things like parking and density and things like that. It doesn't make sense to have larger buildings on side blocks where there's no parking,
right,
versus if you're doing it on a commercial strip and you have parking, maybe it's not 1-to-1, which means a parking spot for every apartment, but if it's again close to the light rail, close to public transportation, then it would make sense. And I know a lot of people out there are pretty fed up with the parking situation, and see, this is why you're able to tie everything in, right? And that's why it's important to know what's coming to your community. And the best way to do that is to keep yourself informed when it comes to planning and when it comes to zoning. Even if you're looking for development and you see that development is taking place, it's very important to see what type of development is coming. It's very important for you to understand what if they're going for variances. Because if they're going for variances, that means they're looking to change the landscape, right? Versus as of right. As of right basically means whatever was there, they're looking to build again, and it's totally above board, right? It's no changes are being made.
Conforms to the zoning.
Right, and it conforms to the zoning, absolutely. And so, that's very important, right? But even still, what we like to do with these type of projects, we still like to be a bit hands-on and have the community give input when it comes to design.
Right.
Because, you can say that this is as of right, but do you want a pink and blue house on your block? Do you want a block with do you want all siding when everything is brownstone? Do you want all brick when everything is Victorian? So, it's very important that we understand the processes, and that way, there's less frustration, right? So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave some information, and, if you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to contact us, send us an email. From the email here, and then I'm going to pass it along to Chris, and he's going to take it from here.
Nice. So what Mike was talking about is really important, about our community having access to all these resources he's talking about at the planning department. So make sure you keep those numbers and info handy, so you have where to go to get that information to kind of be on top of things. We just wanted to also go into a little bit of detail about what the zoning rules and what the zoning looks like throughout Jersey City. So we're going to put up this link that we're also going to put in the comments, and you should definitely look into this on your free time because it's a lot to kind of go through on our show tonight. But the first link is a map. It's actually a map of Jersey City, and it's a zoning map. Jersey City is about 21 square miles. It's pretty big. And on this map, as you can see, there are different areas, and they're kind of labeled. Like Mike was talking about, we have R zones. You'll see a lot of R1. You'll see the redevelopment plans on that map. They're noted with colors and numbers. And there's a legend at the top on each corner that kind of reference, so you can figure out what redevelopment plan that matches up with that Mike was talking about earlier. So when you have some time, definitely scroll through this. Maybe you can figure out where your home is and see what zone you're in. And then what you can do is take the next step. So the next slide that's coming up, and we'll put this link in the comments as well. This is actually a link to more specific details in each of the zones. So in there you'll see like the R zones that Mike was talking about. You'll see the neighborhood commercial zones. There's a bunch of different zones, and in this link, once again, you should look through this on your free time because it's a lot of info to digest. Development is a lot, and that's why we're going to do it in segments. But for today, we're just doing kind of an overview. But look through that link in your free time, and you can go through, match up what zone you live near or in, and then look up on the second link, and you can kind of match up what's allowed in that zone. And that'll give you a little more empowerment and knowledge so that when development's coming into your community, you can kind of feel justified in how you feel, whether you want to see things change a little bit or if you want to see things conform to the zoning. That's why those meetings that Mike was talking about are really important, those community meetings. Basically, what happens with development, if you live in close proximity to a proposed development like Mike was talking about, you might get a notice. Usually the notice goes out to all the properties within 200 feet of a property that's going to be have a proposal, right? And so you might get this notice saying that there's like a zoning hearing. And that's kind of like a court hearing where the developer's proposal for something that doesn't conform to the zoning is being heard. And there's a board of commissioners, there's a zoning board and a planning board, and they will listen to the proposal, right? And then there'll be a portion where they listen to community feedback, right? And then they'll render a decision as to whether or not to approve or deny the application. And that's very important. A lot of residents may not even be aware of how your voice is so important in that decision-making process. So if you happen to get one of those notices, we have a lot of development going on in Jersey City right now, and you might, don't get nervous, but you should definitely call city planning and try to learn a little bit more about the project. See if your local community group is engaged in it at all, and work with them. And then see what zone you're in and see what they're proposing and how it conforms or doesn't conform. Knowledge is power, so that you can make the best decision for the kind of development you want around you. So that's basically kind of the overview of the basics of development. The planning hearings are on Tuesdays at 5:30, and they usually happen every 2 weeks. And zoning hearings are on Thursdays at 6:30. They're about every 2 weeks as well. They used to be done at City Hall, but because of COVID, they're on Zoom, which makes it really convenient for more people to speak up from the convenience of work or home while juggling other responsibilities. And we'll get back to you with more info and subsequent sessions about development, and we'll kind of focus on specific things. Maybe we'll talk about the R zones, and then we'll talk about redevelopment plans. It's a lot of info, but just for today, we wanted to make you start to feel a little comfortable about learning the basics about development. And we will talk to you soon. Have a good one.
Good night.